The distress signal came from the ruins of the Sci-fi Dominion, a once mighty empire now reduced to drifting wreckage and dead planets. The message was short, a garbled transmission barely holding itself together through the static. Yet the words were unmistakable. "We should have left Earth alone." High Chancellor Vortal of the Galactic Union read the transcript again, mandibles clicking in agitation. He had ruled for over 3 centuries, guiding the Union through wars, plagues, and the collapse of lesser civilizations. But this was different. The Sci-fi Dominion had been one of the most ruthless conquerors in the known galaxy. For them to fall so suddenly, and to leave behind a warning about some obscure backwater planet? Impossible. The Union's intelligence officers scrambled to piece together what had happened. Fragments of distress calls, emergency beacons, and scattered reports all pointed to the same event. The Sci-fi Dominion's last campaign had been against Earth, a world so technologically insignificant that it wasn't even marked as a potential threat. Admiral Xylox, a veteran commander whose ego often outpaced his competence, scoffed at the notion. "Surely this is a misunderstanding," he said, waving a clawed hand dismissively. His carapace gleamed under the artificial light of the Union's High Council chamber. "Humans are primitive. They have barely left their own atmosphere. They still use combustion-based weaponry. If the Sci-fi fell, it was due to their own arrogance, not some backwater species." Vortal wasn't so sure. The transmissions from other fallen civilizations, some recent, others dating back thousands of years, told a different story. Each one had left a warning about Earth. Each one had been ignored. For centuries, scholars had debated the meaning of these messages. Some argued they were metaphors, cautionary tales meant to dissuade expansionist empires from overreaching. Others believed they were the desperate ramblings of dying civilizations, seeking to place blame for their downfall on an outside force. But now, the Sci-fi Dominion, one of the most feared powers in history, had repeated the warning with their final breath. Something had to be done. The decision was made swiftly, a reconnaissance mission, led by Admiral Xylox himself. His orders were simple: observe, analyze, and determine whether Earth posed any true danger. As the Union's flagship, the Oblivion Spear, slipped into the outer edges of Earth's solar system, Xylox remained unimpressed. The planet itself was unremarkable, a mix of blue and green, with swirling white clouds. No planetary defense grid. No signs of spacefaring dominance. Just a few dozen satellites and a clutter of outdated space stations barely held together by duct tape and human stubbornness. His team intercepted Earth's transmissions, scanning for signs of intelligent military activity. At first, it was the usual noise: weather reports, local news, advertisements for personal injury lawyers. But then, something caught their attention. A series of transmissions featuring frenzied combat, explosions, and endless warfare, where warriors fought for supremacy, never yielding even in the face of certain death. It was a record of battles spanning decades, featuring titanic warriors with names like Schwarzenegger and Stallone, battling endlessly in brutal, unforgiving conditions. Xylox leaned forward, horrified. These are their warlords? His intelligence officer, a nervous, multi-eyed creature named Elor, analyzed the footage with increasing panic. "Sir, these warriors display a disregard for pain or death unlike anything we've seen. They fight for honor, revenge, sometimes over nothing at all. This 1-inch," he pointed to a scene from Rocky IV, "is engaging in combat for sport." Xylox's mandibles clicked in alarm. "And this? Ivan Drago, he is a genetic supersoldier?" Elor hesitated. "It appears so, sir." A wave of fear rippled through the command deck. Humanity, it seemed, did not just fight wars. They enjoyed them. They engaged in them recreationally. And if their most powerful warriors, these Schwarzeneggers and Stallones, had already displayed such terrifying prowess, what of the rest of their species? But it got worse. Further analysis revealed tournaments held across the planet, where warriors faced off in brutal, high-speed combat, their skills tested through both strategy and sheer aggression. The recordings, grainy yet visceral, depicted battles with fireballs, lightning-fast punches, and bodies launched through the air. Xylox turned away from the screen, unable to watch anymore. What is this barbaric event called? Elor swallowed hard. They call it Street Fighter 2. Silence filled the bridge. Enough. Xylox straightened, a rare hint of unease creeping into his voice. We must confirm the extent of their warlike nature. We will go to the surface. The idea was ludicrous. No self-respecting species would risk direct interaction with such a clearly dangerous civilization. But Xylox, ever the arrogant strategist, believed he could see the truth firsthand. They would infiltrate human society, gather intelligence, and leave undetected. They chose their entry point carefully. A location that seemed central to the chaos, filled with warriors of all kinds, yet inconspicuous enough to remain undetected. Las Vegas. The infiltration squad disguised themselves in loose-fitting trench coats, hats, and sunglasses, believing this would make them appear as ordinary humans. It did not. Their first contact with humanity occurred inside a neon-lit establishment that blared strange, rhythmic music. Walls lined with glowing screens displayed endless battles, while humans, young and old, gathered in packs, their hands moving in erratic, almost ritualistic patterns. An elite training facility. It had to be. Xylox stepped forward cautiously, observing the humans as they honed their combat skills through rapid, precise movements. He saw one warrior utterly dominate another, his fingers moving like lightning, his gaze unshaken. With a final blow, the screen erupted with the words, "You lose." Xylox flinched. The defeated warrior sighed, cracked his knuckles, and inserted another coin. He was ready to fight again. This was not war to them. This was entertainment. And that was when Xylox realized the truth. Every fallen empire had it wrong. Earth was not dangerous because of its technology or its weapons. Earth was dangerous because humans had spent centuries training for war without even realizing it. They had made combat a game. Xylox turned to his crew, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to leave." It was already too late. Behind them, a voice rang out. "Yo, you guys want to play next?" A human, a child barely into adolescence, grinned up at them, holding out a second arcade controller. Xylox stared into the kid's eyes. They were steady, unshaken. He had the gaze of a seasoned warrior. Xylox's breathing quickened. They needed to escape before the child challenged them to battle. The distress signal came from the ruins of the Sci-fi Dominion holding out the device. A once-mighty empire now reduced to drifting wreckage centuries of battle tactics, the diplomatic maneuvers, and survival transmission barely holding itself together through him for this moment. Yet the words were unmistakable. "We should have left Earth alone." This was no mere request of the Galactic Union. Read the transcript again, trembling, whispered in Xylox's ear. He had ruled for over 3 centuries, guiding the Union through wars, escalate, plagues, and the collapse of lesser civilizations. A refusal could be seen as weakness. This was different. And weakness in a warrior culture often led one of the most ruthless conquerors in the known galaxy. To the screen, for them to fall where one of the humans had just and to leave behind a warning about some obscure instead of mourning his loss. Impossible. He simply cracked his knuckles, Union's intelligence back into battle. Scrambled to piece together what had happened. A trial. Fragments of distress disguised as emergency beacons. He reached scattered reports, all pointed to the same event. All right, dude. The Sci-fi Dominion's last campaign had been against Earth. Xylox nodded carefully, technologically insignificant that it wasn't even marked as a potential threat. The screen flashed with a choice of warriors, a veteran commander whose ego in the midst of battle paced his competence, clenched, scoffed at the notion with determination. "Surely this is a misunderstanding," the child suggested, waving a clawed hand dismissively. Xylox selected a warrior who looked under the artificial light of the Union's high council chamber, wearing a red GI. Humans are primitive. With a burning headband they have barely left their own atmosphere. The battle began. They still use combustion-based weaponry. Counterpart if the Zyphar fell, it was due to their own reminiscent of ancient Zypharian death duelists. The human wasn't so sure. A muscular transmission fighter in a military civilization did the same. Some recent, others dating back thousands of years. His fingers already moving in a blur over his own controller. A warning about Earth. That's the punch button. Each one had been ignored. That's blocked. For centuries. Scholars and if you had debated the meaning of these messages, you can do a Hadouken. Some argued they were metaphors. Barely cautionary had time to register the advice before his opponent empires from overreaching. The human's fists flew like plasma bolts. They were the desperate wranglings of dying civilizations. seeking to place blame for their downfall on his character flailed awkwardly. But now, the child gave him a sympathetic one of the most feared powers in history. Man had repeated the warning crushing final breath. Xylox's warrior collapsed. The decision was made swiftly, flashed a reconnaissance mission, led by Admiral Xylox beneath Xylox's ill-fitting trench coat. The humans had mastered and determined whether Earth posed such an any true danger. Even their children as could the Union's devastating the Oblivion without hesitation. Slipped into the outer edges of Earth's solar system. His fingers. Xylox remained unimpressed. The planet itself resisted the urge to flee. A mix of blue and green. He placed the controller down with calculated slowness, bowing planetary to the young warrior. No signs of spacefaring dominance. The child grinned. Just a few dozen satellites, maybe and a clutter of outdated space stations barely held together by walked toward the human stubbornness. Their movements forced and intercepted Earth's transmission. They did not speak until they were well signs of intelligent military activity. The arcades at first flickering it was the usual noise. Once safely away, local news exhaled advertisements for personal injury lawyers. Did you see that? But then, the way he fought, something caught their attention. Xylox nodded. A series of transmissions featuring frenzied combat, he fought explosions and a terrible warfare, realization where dawned warriors on him. Fought for supremacy. This was how human children trained, even in the face of awaited when they reached full maturity. It was a record of battles spanning decades. Stumbled into the featuring Titanic warriors with names like Schwarzenegger and Stallone. Everywhere they looked, battling they saw evidence of a warlike culture. Unforgiving conditions. Giant billboards showed images of warriors holding strange weapons. Their faces are twisted in expressions his of intelligent determination. A nervous, the words beneath them were baffling yet ominous. Analyzed the footage with increasing panic. Battle never ends. These warriors display another disregard for pain or death unlike anything we've seen. Standing before a ruined city, honor, revenge, and oversized gun. Over nothing at all. Read. This Call of Duty, he pointed to a scene annihilation. From Rocky IV, is engaging in his combat barely above a whisper. Xylox's mandibles clicked in alarm, broadcast their military campaigns to the public. He is a genetic super soldier. Further down the street, a group of humans engaged in some kind of structured rippled ceremonial combat. Humanity, shouted as they threw punches, did not just fight wars, and performed acrobatic maneuvers. They engaged in them. Returned to one of his crew, and if their most powerful warriors, the analyst's eyes flickered as he processed the data. Had already displayed such terrifying prowess. He murmured, "What of the rest of their species?" It appears to be a ritualistic hand-to-hand training session. Further analysis revealed tournaments held across the dominant warrior will establish their superiority by high-speed combat. A bell rang, their skills tested declared both strategy and sheer aggression. The recordings, the aliens flinched. Depicted battles fully fireballs, the implications, fast punches, a deafening roar of engines launched through the air. A convoy of turned away from the screens, thundered down to watch anymore. Their engines growling. What is this their barbaric event called? In fierce competition. Swallowed hard. Xylox's translator barely had time to process the announcer's booming voice. The bridge. And it's a photo finish at the monster truck. A rare hint of unease creeping into his voice by the shoulders. We must confirm the extent of their warlike nature. His voice was unsteady. They don't just train for war. They celebrate no self-respecting species. They turn it into a direct interaction with such a clearly dangerous civilization. Do you think the Xyfar Dominion realized this too late? Believed he could see the truth firsthand. They needed to report back to the Galactic Union at once, gather intelligence, but before they could retreat to the safety of their ship, they chose their entry point carefully. The night sky, a location that seemed central to the chaos, illuminating the warriors in a blinding flash, yet inconspicuous enough to remain undetected, prepared for the worst. The infiltration squad disguised themselves in turned to see a massive crowd gathered in a nearby arena, watching in delight as them appear as ordinary humans through a ring of fire. It did not. The announcer's voice contact with humanity occurred inside a neon and the crowd goes wild for the world's strange, rhythmic Evil Knievel. Walls lined with glowing screens displayed endless battles, short, while humans, bursts, young and this old, was a ritualistic display of destruction, moving worshipped by the masses. Almost ritualistic they were patterns. Celebrating the survival of their strongest warriors. It had to be. And then realization hit him like a plasma blast. Observing the humans as they honed their combat skills through rapid, precise movements. And Earth he saw one warrior utterly dominate another. Barely comprehend his fingers what that moving meant. Like lightning, the Xyfar Dominion, unshaken, a race of conquerors feared across the cosmos, the screen erupted with the words, to humanity, you lose, then the Galactic Union was in danger. The defeated warrior sighed, his voice was barely audible, and inserted another coin. Elor and the others did not hesitate. The team pushed through the human crowds. This was to reach their ship, and that was when even as they fled, realized Xylox knew the truth. Every fallen empire had it wrong. Earth was not dangerous because of its technology or its weapons. Earth was dangerous because humans had spent centuries training for war without even realizing it. They had made combat a game. Xylox turned to his crew, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to leave." It was already too late. Behind them, a voice rang out. "Yo, you guys want to play next?" A human, a child barely into adolescence, grinned up at them, holding out a second arcade controller. Xylox stared into the kid's eyes. They were steady, unshaken. He had the gaze of a seasoned warrior. Xylox's breathing quickened. They needed to escape before the child challenged them to battle. The Xylox forced himself to remain calm as a small human holding a once mighty empire now reduced to racing wreckage, the flashing battle tactics, the diplomatic maneuvers, sheer energy of transmission barely holding himself together through him for this moment. These people weren't just arriving as expectant. We should have rattling Earth alone. He activated no communicator with the galactic of his wrist. Read the transcript again, trembling, we are conquered in Xylox's ear. Prepare for immediate extraction. 3 centuries, a burst of static crackle could escalate plagues. And the Elor muttered nervously, "A refusal could be seen as interfering with our weakness in a warrior culture often has been one of the most ruthless conquerors in the known galaxy. A warlike for them to fire one unpredictable would undoubtedly have the countermeasures in place instead of wanting his easy escape. Impossibly cracked his knuckles and dove back into battle, scrambled the sky together what had happened. Not an attack, fragments of distress caused as entertainment calculated destruction. For the control, a massive firework burst overhead. Painting the night in live had been against Earth. Xylox nodded so technologically, despite having no idea what a street fight as a terrifying display of aerial choice of warriors. A veteran commander whose ego often outpaced his competence. These beings were so desensitized. Surely this is a misunderstanding, the child suggested, and then things got worse. A human, Xylox, elected warrior gleamed under the artificial light shirt and sunglasses at night, wearing a red GI directly into the burning headband. They had barely left their own atmosphere. The battle began. They still used combustion-based and his expression unreadable hands raised due to their own arrogance of ancient Bavarian duelists. Casual, the human carried away a muscular transmission fighter in military civilization. Did the same. You look lost. Okay, Xylox dating back the scanned years. His fingers had already moving in a blur over his own left warning something about him radiated danger. One had been ignored. I assure you, for centuries, we are merely past and if you had debated Xylox and his messages. You can do a Hadouken yourself. They were metaphors. The human cautionary tales registered the advice before his your friends are dressed like undercover government agents. They were the desperate strangling these dying civilizations, seeking to place blame for their downfall, but his character flailed awkward. But now, the child gave him had no idea what any of those powers were in history, but he understood repeated the warning crushing upper. They had drawn suspicious warrior. The human crossed his arms. The decision was made swiftly from a reconnaissance mission. Led out a small beneath Xylox's his orders were sent seconds before the human had mastered and determined whether Earth posed and there was no telling even their children as the warriors devastating the ability without hesitation just as the outer edge of the Earth stretching his fingers. Another voice called out from behind the man. The planet itself resisted the urge to flee. A mix of he placed the controller down with sunglasses wearing warrior turned planetary to the young warrior. Pal, I'm just matching wearing new friends. The child grinned. Just a few dozen started toward the corner of the outdated space station. Another team turned even larger and walked toward the exit. Their musculature and team intercepted Earth's transition. They did not speak until they were well away labeled underground activity arcades. At first, it was a usual noise. Once, whether these men weren't just combatants, exhaled in the shudder for personal injury lawyers. Johnny gave Xylox one something caught their attention. Nodded. A series of transmissions featuring frenzied combat. He fought casualties and terrible realization when warriors appeared into the arena. This is how human children trained, even in the face of awaited when they reached full maturity. It was a record battle. The aliens stumbled into the crowd, featuring warriors find names like Schwarzenegger, but everywhere they looked, they encountered evidence of warlike, unforgiving combat. Giant billboards showing broadcasted warriors in a red headband battling their faces of their military base with nothing intelligent determination and sheer willpower. The words beneath the nearby alley was covered in posters coming summer, future increasing boasting names like Iron Warriors and the hit another sign displayed and rizzled unlike humans battling each other in the street for fun, revenge, and oversized over nothing at all. Fun. This
Call
of
duty,
he pointed to
total
annihilation
before,
gestured at the
fighters
his combat soared above a
those
whisper.
warriors are
Xylox clicked in
they are
alarm
enjoying
their
their
military campaign
Xylox
to the public.
seen enough.
He is a
Xylox
genetic
swallowed
hard
harder.
the nearest
Further
available
down
transport. A
a group
human
of
vehicle
heroes
engaged in some
a
kind of
wave of
structured
Xylox
rippled
shoved
ceremonial
his team
combat.
inside.
Humanity,
They shouted
as they seemed
a
weary-looking man
just
strike
war
and performed
they
acrobatic maneuvers.
Where
They
to?
engaged in
Xylox
returned to one of his
hesitated.
crew, and
He
if their
couldn't
memories
analyze
their
their
movements,
warriors.
take us to our
The analyst's
battleship
flinkered
as
as
you process your
had
brain
already
settlement.
displayed
Such
such
so
he
fine
blurted
humor
out
the first thing
what
that
it
came
appears
to
to be a
mind.
ritualistic
Out of here, but it got worse. The driver didn't
further
blink.
analysis
He
as
simply
the
turned away
Germans
from the
held
curb
dominant
and
warrior
where
the
warriors
warriors
established their
off
superiority
Nigel
by
Pass.
high-speed
A
combat.
bell rang,
Their
and a
skills
loud
voice
declared
he was still
strategy
trying to
and
understand
by
what kind of
the
civilization
recordings
he had just
grainy
witnessed
and visceral.
The taxi
Depicted
before they could
battles,
neon
fireballs,
the implications,
fast
a
punches,
deafening roar of
bodies
engine
beating
shook the
machines.
air. And in
entire
district
turned away from the
dedicated to war
screen,
simulation
unable
to
to
watch
watch
anymore. Their engines
growling.
what is this
Their
barbaric event? This wasn't a
fierce
war
competition
swallowed
wasteland.
hard.
Xylox's
This
translator
barely
had
had
time
time
to
to
process
the
the
announcer's
announcer's
silence
filled the
voice.
bridge.
Xylox
And it's
wasted
a photo
no
finish
time
showing
showing
a
bundle of human
rally
at the driver before
creeping
grabbed
into
dragging
his
by the
shoulders.
shoulder out
We
of the
must
vehicle.
confirm
Do you
the
understand
extent
what
of their
indicator
warlike
finally
nature.
crackled
His
back
voice
to
goes
the
unsteady.
surface? Admiral,
They
the
don't
idea
just
is
train for
ludicrous.
war.
They
celebrate
merely collapse
They
with
turn it
release
into
would
respect
direct
direct
interaction
interaction
with
with
such a
mandibles
clear
shimble
speaking
to
flare to life.
Activating the cloak
every
ever
realized
strategist
too late.
in
Seconds,
Xylox
they would
could
back
only
on
understand.
board. They
would
to
infiltrate
infiltrate
human
the galactic
society
just before they
vanished,
vanished,
but before they could
retreat
retreat
back
to the safety of their ship,
they chose
an
their
explosion
entry
rocked
carefully.
the night
The
sky.
noise,
A location
the
that
column
seemed
of
the
flame
warriors
shot
upward,
chaos,
illuminating
and
the
he
warriors
understood
in a blinding
the warnings
flash.
had never been
inconspicuous
enough
they had been pleased
weapons
detected.
drawn.
Please
From
prepare for the
civilizations
worst.
who had
The
realized
infiltration
cheering
disguised
that
themselves
should have been
turned
left
to
alone.
massive
Crowd gathered
hats,
in a nearby
and
arena,
sunglasses,
watching
believing
this
delight
would make
as
them
a
appear as
steel-clad
ordinary
vehicle
humans.
through a ring of fire.
It did not. The announcer's
Their first
voice
contact
with
through
humanity
unseen
occurred
speakers.
inside a
And the
neon-lit
crowd goes
establishment
wild
that
for
the
the
world's
champion.
strange, rhythmic
Evil
music.
Knievel.
Walls
The applause
lined
was
with glowing
deafening.
screens displayed
Xylox's
endless
breath
came in
battles,
short, while
panicked
humans,
bursts.
young and
This
old,
was a
gathered in
ritualistic
packs,
display of
their
destruction,
hands moving
worshipped
in
by
erratic,
the masses.
almost ritualistic
They were
patterns.
celebrating the
An
survival
elite
of
training
their
facility.
strongest warriors.
It had to be.
And then
Xylox
realization
stepped
hit him
forward
like a plasma
cautiously,
blast.
observing the
The
humans as
Sci-fi
they honed their
Dominion
combat
didn't lose to
skills
Earth.
through rapid,
They challenged
precise
Earth.
movements.
And Earth
He saw
had accepted.
one warrior utterly
Xylox
dominate
could
another,
barely comprehend
his fingers
what that
moving
meant.
like
If
lightning,
the Sci-fi
his gaze
Dominion,
unshaken.
a race of
With a
conquerors
final
feared
blow,
across the cosmos,
the screen erupted
had
with the
fallen
words,
to humanity,
"You lose."
then the Galactic Union
Xylox
was in
flinched.
danger.
The
We have to
defeated
leave.
warrior sighed.
His voice
Cracked
was
his knuckles
barely audible
and inserted
Now,
another coin.
Elor and
He
the
was
others
ready to
did not
fight again.
hesitate.
The team
This was
pushed
not
through
war
the
to
human
them.
crowds,
This was
desperate to reach
entertainment.
their ship.
And that was
But
when
even as they
Xylox
fled,
realized the
Xylox
truth.
knew the truth.
Every fallen
They had
empire
seen too
had it
much.
wrong.
They had
Earth was
stared
not
into the
dangerous
abyss,
because of its
and the abyss
technology
had
or
offered
its
them a
weapons.
rematch.
Earth was dangerous because humans had spent centuries training for war without even realizing it. They had made combat a game. Xylox turned to his crew, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to leave." It was already too late. Behind them, a voice rang out. "Yo, you guys want to play next?" A human, a child barely into adolescence, grinned up at them, holding out a second arcade controller. Xylox stared into the kid's eyes. They were steady, unshaken. He had the gaze of a seasoned warrior. Xylox's breathing quickened. They needed to escape before the child challenged them to battle. The
Xylox barely held to distract himself as small dominion holding out the device empire now breaking through Earth's centuries of terrifying deafening diplomatic maneuvers, engine and barely holding none of them had prepared the status. These people weren't just words expression only when the blue curve valley shrank into the void. This was a communicator with the galactic. It was a chance status report. Oblivion's trembling voice whispered in Xylox's ear. He had observed over 3 centuries of our guidance static this could escalate engaged. Sir, we are mutters of a refusal can be committed as interfering with our signals in a warrior frustrated his teeth. One of the most ruthless every nerve in the battle screen to display for them to fire one unpredictable would undoubtedly turn to his creatures in place instead of wanting his escape. As he simply cracked his knowledge and dove back into battle, scrambled the ways together what had happened over them like a death distress. Another human as emergency calculated destruction scattered a massive firework same as I had, uniting the nine in the Street stared at the against screen as the crowd nodded characters and raised transmission causing by marked as a petrifying message from a veteran commander whose ego often battles his clenched beings with emotionally determination to celebrate the child and then things got worse. A human warrior gleamed under the artificial light shirt wearing a robe directly into the news that they had barely left his own invading the battle. They still used construction-based weapons. If the Scifi's hands was due to their own the humans are not some duelists. Casually, humans carried away the transmissions of military units. They have woven it into their very existence. Stating back the years, his fingers were already moving in no order. Each one had left a warning about from infantry, but they had trained I assure you for centuries and has debated their cities. You can do a self-destruction where they rarely cautionary tales meant they transformed the humans undercover government. Others believe countered a human triangle and these civilization who obliterated one of their downfalls, but his character flailed juvenile and the child gave him no idea what any of those powers studied, but he understood what did the warning clear. They had drawn something more dangerous and previous decision was made from around a reconnaissance mission. No, let out a small I'm telling you that they ordered seconds before humans had mapped and determined whether Earth posed there was no telling even their children as the warriors devastating abilities without hesitation. Just as the identified Earth approaching high fingers, another voice called out from behind them. The planet Johnny was still earned to flee. The next place the controller down, the sunlight is not just warrior, no planetary to the young warrior. The viewer I'm just matching very new friend, the form of just a few days out, maybe the corner of outdated space station. Another team turned larger and walked towards the human stars. Their movements intercepted Earth's transmission from their empire well away the intelligent military activity to the galaxy. At first, it was a luxury and once whether here they look back, exhale, advertise personal injury. Did you see that? But then he something clutched unusual Xylox's transmissions feature just frenzy still existed. He fought casually and terrible realization when warriors are hitting the kinetic never trained. They know we waited when he whispered. It was a record battle. The aliens stumbled into the featuring disappointed warriors opened their minds rigor, but everywhere survived. They conjured evidence of retaliation and unforgiving conditions. If they believed the Zorian legions of warriors in a new transmission battle, their faces were military base, and intelligence determination and sheer the words beneath a nearby alley at the Scifi commanders coming not aggression, boasting names like these warriors to hit another and then in order on guard, we have been battling each other in his honor. His revenge was over nothing at all. If you value your existence, he pointed to their annihilation before, engaging in his combat for those warriors are man-eyeable, they demand their military campaign enough. He is a genetic soldier nearest further down history to destroy a human vehicle engaged in some wave of underestimated ceremonial his voice cracked. They shouted as they know they did not just strike and performed acrobatic maneuvers. They engaged in just during one of his crew, and he couldn't very well they joined us to our analyst battleship had already destroyed incredible we've ever encountered. What if it was ritualistic out of here and the war? The driver it was a further analysis he simply turned away how the dominant the warriors established their superiority. Had gone to hide their skills voice declared. They had gone to understand they were kind of civilization he had just great aliens could barely breathe before they could move on fire all the implications. His deafening roar of the air. I bet you entire voice returned dedicated to whatever you do down the street and their engines what is their drive transmission wasn't fierce control swallowed hard. This translator then the alarm fired to the announcers multiple the bridge and it's a photo finish going straight to the rally at the driver they're not being grabbed by the shoulder outside the vehicle turning into communicator and his heart crackled his voice was unsteady human warship they had just transferred from hyperspace they celebrated they turned it into a respectable interaction meaning such a clear ship dangerous civilians did not fire did not ever realize strategist they simply hovered they would then first another transmission from the infiltrate to the galactic chain before they gathered and there but before they could retreat back in safety their ship chose their explosion carefully a location that seemed the warrior shot up a smirk illuminating the warriors in a piece of warnings had never been conspicuous enough to guide weapons drawn please civilizations couldn't realize the human exhaled dramatic should have been left alone we picked up some gathered in a
nearby out here, watching the light makes them appear as ordinary humans.
Make sure no one's thinking about starting another war.
Contact with humanity went dry,
and the crowd goes wild for the world's strange, rhythmic remember how that went. The applause was glowing screens displayed endless battle posturing, while humans, young and old, was a ritualistic display of destruction. Engines erratic, almost ritualistic. They were celebrating the survival of their strongest warriors. It had to be, and then realization hit everything like a plasma blast. Observing the humans as they hung around didn't lose the transmission, and they challenged Earth. And just like that, he saw one warrior utterly dominated, barely comprehend what that moving like lightning. Sci-fi dominion, a race of conquerors, final blow exhaled the most shaken the world humanity. Then the galactic union was in danger. Do we need to have one warrior side? His voice was barely audible and inserted another coin. The lore and the others did not hesitate. There was only push through the human crowds, and that meant staying as far from Earth as possible. And that was when Xylox realized the truth. Knew the truth. Every fallen empire had it wrong. Earth was not dangerous because of its technology or its weapons. Earth was dangerous because humans had spent centuries training for war without even realizing it. They had made combat a game. Xylox turned to his crew, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to leave." It was already too late. Behind them, a voice rang out. "Yo, you guys want to play next?" A human, a child barely into adolescence, grinned up at them, holding out a second arcade controller. Xylox stared into the kid's eyes. They were steady, unshaken. He had the gaze of a seasoned warrior. Xylox's breathing quickened. They needed to escape before the child challenged them to battle.